Let's transition now to the University of Maryland guys, and the Terps are 11-8. A bad loss. It was a road game, but still a bad loss to a depleted NC State team. And, increasingly it looks as if this team is on the outside looking in a big way, not even close to the NCAA tournament field right now, probably not even the NIT, Matt. But I want to ask you about sort of Turgeon. This is his third season. How much pressure, assuming Maryland continues to sort of go about 500 in the league, will he and should he be under for not making the NCAA tournament? Last time Terps were in was 2010.
A fair amount, frankly. I mean, because turning around a basketball team is, and I don't know how much it even need to be turned around, but look at all the heat that Randy Edsall was under in 3 years coaching the football program. And football is much harder because your recruits usually don't play for a year, sometimes two, depending on the position. And whereas basketball, you can pretty much make over a program, and we talked about it before the show. The guys on this team now are Turgeon's guys, and one of his better players, and Des Wells, he sort of lucked into. So, yeah, these are his guys, and they're not making a 68-team field is a pretty low standard. Frankly, you ought to be able to do that in 3 years with the expectations Maryland has in basketball, and it's not going to get any easier. They're inconceivably moving to a tougher basketball conference and maybe into an easier football conference.
That's the sad reality is it's only going to get tougher next year. Big Ten, definitely the best basketball conference this year. Rick, what are your thoughts on the pressure on Turgeon? How much will he be under? How much should he be under?
Well, I think those are different questions because I don't know what it means to be under pressure at Maryland right now. He's not even midway through his contract, getting him paid, almost $2 million a year. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to fire him and buy him out? I mean, I'm not sure that money's sitting around College Park to do that. So
That's for
he
sure.
should be under pressure under most programs and with a different contract. Maybe there is pressure to perform. I just don't know what that means for him because he can kind of be a middling program for a couple more years. They're not going to can him after 1 year in the Big Ten either. I mean, he's going to have more time to kind of build this thing into what he wants. We just haven't seen any progress so far.
I bet that's a kind of patience. So for 3 tournament-less years is a patience that Gary Williams didn't enjoy.
It's totally
that's
true.
exactly
Totally
right. Thank you for pointing that out.
If Gary did this at the end of his tenure, there would have been bonfires on Route 1.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there would be anyhow. But
Come on now.
I think that aside from the contract situation, I think that so many Maryland fans like to hire and just really like him and how he carries himself and the things he says and the way he acts. And I think that's a big difference from Edsall, and I think part of the reason why Edsall has gotten so much more heat is because just from like a strictly PR standpoint, dealing with the press, dealing with the public, Turgeon is much better. But gosh, performance-wise, I mean, it's been abysmal. And that one yesterday was about as bad as it gets.
The basketball program means a lot to that athletic department financially, so it'll be interesting with no North Carolina or Duke visits this year. You do have Syracuse coming, but let's see what these crowds are like at Comcast Center with, especially if it looks like they don't even have a snowball's chance of the tournament down the stretch. I mean, it could get pretty grim in that building, and that would be a big deal. I mean, if you're not filling up that building, and especially you don't have your rivals coming this year, you're never having them come again. I guess when you have like a number 3 Michigan State come visit, it'll be a big deal, I guess, in the way Syracuse visiting this year will be.
But they're starting like a lot of things from scratch now because there's not like built-in passion for any of the opponents certainly, and there's not built-in passion for the program.
And the geographic proximity, I mean, doesn't speak to basketball. It's like, you're going to build a big basketball rivalry with Penn State or Rutgers.
Nebraska.
I mean, yeah. Well, I'm saying the ones that are close by that maybe you could have some kind of football. Football, I think there might be some hope that, Penn State was always sort of a geographic outlier in the Big Ten, so that could happen. But in basketball, it would not going to be.
And certainly, can I say?
Yeah, please.
This is got to be one of the worst years for local college basketball as a whole in decades. Really, Georgetown, a bad loss to Marquette, and they're not safely in the tournament either. NGW Savage, their sophomore dynamic player, they said he's out 6 to 8 weeks today. They're obviously the best team in the area, but still, that's a.
This always infuriates people about defining the area. But
and
Virginia,
AU, right? AU's having Virginia in the area. Let's just throw West Virginia, Virginia Tech in there too. Yeah, no, I gotcha.
Okay,
also
Maryland and Georgetown together, pretty bad right now.
No doubt. Let me take one extra minute, and I'm going to ask the clock to be reset here. But I want to focus on 2 other numbers: 4 road wins for Turgeon in his 2+ years now in the ACC. And last night, Rick, I want to ask you this: the quote that I found most damning and an indictment on the sort of leadership of the team was Evan Smotrich, who said, "In a close game, league game on the road, not a must-win. I know Dan hates when we go down that road, but a winnable game. He says, I quote, "I personally felt that we were playing the last 5 minutes like it was the middle of the first half." That speaks to leadership, Rick.
Yeah, I think it does speak to coaching, especially when you're coming off that Notre Dame game. You're entering the game knowing that maybe the ACC's top scorer is not playing for NC State. That's something to take advantage of, and to come out and put up the performance they had, especially in the second half. It just doesn't bode well for the future, and it does speak to leadership a little bit. And I don't quite get it, because my impression always is that the kids do like Turgeon. I wouldn't always say that about Gary. He had a way of turning off some kids. So there's no explanation. And I'm kind of sick of hearing Turgeon speak after games and saying, I'm at a loss, because it's ultimately up to him to explain what exactly is going wrong here, because it is going wrong. And especially when they go on the road. You're never going to compete in that conference unless you can pick up some here and there, and they can't do it.
And the worst part about it is the ACC is way down this year. Duke, Carolina aren't that good. They might be the 5th or 6th best conference in the country, and Maryland's middling in it. Yeah, right, the Big East teams, the Big East.
His teams have gotten better. Both of his teams have gotten better in February, I think, as the seasons have gone on. So maybe he's still got time to pull that one out.
We'll see. Last year they had the big win against Duke at home, in the last home game against Duke. But
he needs a tournament bid, though.
They need to beat Syracuse. They need to make a run of they might need to win the ACC tournament for all we know. Anyway, yes, it'll be very interesting to see what happens at the end of this year.